Good Tuesday afternoon to you. I'm Dakota Makris. Thank you so much for joining us. First at 4, we've got showers hanging around the mountains this afternoon, but a more powerful system that could bring severe weather to the area waits in the wings. Meteorologist Evan Hatter begins our severe weather alert day coverage.
That's right, Dakota. We do have showers around this afternoon, so you're maybe headed out from work. You do see some of those raindrops falling on your windshields this afternoon, but this is more of a nuisance than anything else. High knob camera UVA wise, we're in the middle and upper 50s at this hour, I should say. We're going to continue to see the potential for that overcast and those showers working in through the afternoon. Downtown Whitesburg, sometimes it takes a second. We'll get there. You see right now, actually mostly dry, but overcast right now into downtown Whitesburg. Low 60s at the moment. Those dew points still in the 40s. So we don't quite have all that moisture there yet. Even with clouds and showers today, many of us upper 50s and low 60s out there. Right now, many of us are dry, but you see that next band of rain beginning to push in from the west. That will continue to push into portions of the Kentucky River Valley. In fact, some areas already seeing that into portions of Powell, Estill, Jackson, Rockcastle, even back toward the Cumberland Valley into Pulaski and even Laurel and Wayne counties at this hour. Everything here continues to push off to the east. This is one area of low pressure. If you look down to the south, causing severe weather across the deep south, multiple tornado warnings in South Carolina and Georgia. But we are not alone in the possibility of severe weather. You see, that's tomorrow's risk, a slight risk for the southern half of the viewing area. I'll break down our chances and when we could see those storms move in coming up in just a few minutes. Dakota?
All right, Evan, thank you very much. A Franklin Circuit Court judge is hearing testimony in a legal challenge of Kentucky's newly drawn legislative and congressional district maps. Lawyers for the Democratic Party called a Harvard professor to the stand. Well, that professor talked about his complex and detailed studies of Kentucky's districts. WYMT's Phil Pendleton has more on what was said in the courtroom.
Today's hearing came after the state Democratic Party, a Democratic representative from here in Franklin County, along with several voters, filed a lawsuit. They do not believe the state House district and U.S. congressional maps are constitutional. Now, first up for the Democratic Party was a Harvard professor. He spent several hours talking about his studies of algorithms, political methodology, and simulation analysis. He was called on by the Democrats because of his research into legal cases in other states. Now, Democrats claim the state House map approved by the legislature gives too many Republicans an unfair advantage and also gerrymanders in their favor. The professor said his studies did show some Republican-leaning districts. However, under cross-examination, the attorney for the Commonwealth worked to discredit his experience in several recent elections, including the one of Matt Bevin versus Andy Beshear in the 2019 governor's race that found Bevin unpopular among teachers and other groups. The Democrats will continue to call witnesses through tomorrow. Then the other side gets their opportunity to call witness. That'll be attorneys from the Secretary of State along with the Commonwealth of Kentucky. In Frankfort, Phil Pendleton, now back to you.
A Franklin Circuit judge has already declined to issue an injunction which allows the maps through this election cycle. Well, a Corbin native is receiving international attention for a short film he made. The Arbors takes place in Corbin and is about the relationships and memories students make on the school bus. Matthew Smitley's film is a finalist for the Twin Rivers Media Festival and the Montreal Film Festival. It has gotten recognition from festivals in Madrid, Spain, San Francisco, and Vancouver. Well, Smitley says the notoriety he's received has only motivated him to keep working.
You go through something, and I think you have to trust that you're going to get out on the other side, and then that's when you're kind of ready for the next thing.
Well, as for his next thing, he says he is working to get the rights to adapt a short story from a major publishing company for this summer. We'll have the story coming up at 5:30. One Eastern Kentucky animal shelter is experiencing a crisis right now, battling an overpopulation of animals, all while being short-staffed, causing shelter workers to work 12 to 16-hour work days. Our Alyssa Williams tells us how the shelter is dealing with this issue.
The Kentucky River Regional Animal Shelter is a nonprofit organization that covers 4 eastern Kentucky counties, but recently they've experienced a dramatic influx in animal drop-offs, causing the shelter to change its hours so shelter workers can better care for the animals. Board president for the Kentucky River Regional Animal Shelter, Tammy Noble, says the shelter experienced more than 32 drop-offs in a single day last week. She says when the shelter experiences an influx like this and there are no rescues with the space to help, healthy dogs and cats must be euthanized.
This is overwhelming for our shelter workers. We are one of the fortunate shelters that has employees that does this with their whole heart and soul. They live animals, they love animals, they give them, from the time animals enter our gate, they get nothing but love. And we're struggling to actually give those animals the attention that they need.
Noble says the shelter needs community support to thrive. Monetary and supply donations are welcome, but the shelter needs volunteers now more than anything, even if it's just for an hour or two. In Hazard, Alyssa Williams, WYMT Mountain News.
Well, Noble adds that ensuring your animals are spayed or neutered can also dramatically reduce overpopulation at the shelter. Well, now to some national news. What's the deal with COVID-19 booster shots? Well, that's what advisors to the FDA are scheduled to talk about Wednesday. Just last week, the FDA expanded the emergency use authorization of 2 vaccines, so people 50 years and older can get a second booster shot as early as 4 months after their first one. But that brought up a question. What about people younger than 50? Should they get a second booster? Well, if the answer is yes, then when? There have also been questions about variant-specific boosters and whether the COVID-19 vaccine will become an annual shot. All of these questions will be on the table at Wednesday's meeting with the goal of developing what's being called a general framework to inform decisions on COVID-19 boosters. The meeting will also include an update from experts on coronavirus variants they're predicting, vaccine effectiveness, and new data from Israel on a 4th dose in older adults. Well, surges in COVID-19 cases and asylum requests might soon hit the U.S. at the same time. The CDC is lifting a Trump administration order May 23rd. It stopped most migrant crossings at the southern border, including those for asylum. Since March 2020, the stated reason for it is the COVID-19. Well, the CDC says prevention and mitigation strategies and public health conditions are better now. Refugees are seeking to enter a country where average daily COVID-19 cases, hospitalizations, and deaths have been going down nationwide. But experts say the highly contagious Omicron subvariant BA2 might be reversing those trends. Well, the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention is under scrutiny. A month-long sweeping review of the agency is set to begin next week. The director says it could result in restructuring. Well, that news comes the same day as the announcement of a bipartisan plan for COVID-19 relief. Amy Keeley reports that funding bill would not spend any money or not send any money to the CDC directly.
The U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention is used to scrutinizing science. Now the agency itself is under the microscope. Director Dr. Rochelle Walensky says the Department of Health will conduct a sweeping review starting next Monday. In a memo to staff, Walensky says it's to improve how the agency communicates with the public and consider a restructuring. That news comes the same day as a bipartisan deal Senator Mitt Romney helped negotiate for his chamber. It's for $10 billion of COVID relief money. The measure would fund therapeutics like oral antiviral pills, and it would support vaccines, testing, and research. What it would not do is send money directly to the CDC. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer says he wants to vote on the measure this week.
On COVID, very briefly, over the last few days, my Democratic colleagues and I continued talks with Senator Romney and Republicans, working all hours of the night and into the weekend.
This is clearly a huge focus for the president because of the dire need we have at this moment to get this funding through.
The White House says it would like more money in the plan.
Even as we're very encouraged by the progress, we're going to need more because our objective here is to make sure we can have funding for antivirals, the vaccines needed for people for many months to come.
I'm Amy Kiley reporting.
We're heading over to Wall Street on this Thursday. The Dow closes down more than 280 points. We'll have more financial news in our next half hour. Well, coming up here on Mountain News First at 4, a man who drank a bottle of wine and stole a book on Senate procedures during the attack on the Capitol is heading to jail.
And watching the potential for strong to severe storms that could roll into the mountains by tomorrow afternoon. I've got the very latest coming up next.
Have you ever felt leg pain, restlessness, cramps, tingling, swelling, numbness, itchiness, or coldness?